Happy February 1st to our friends and colleagues at Swta Nation. I want to thank Kristen for inviting me to be here today, at least electronically. I'm very sorry that I'm not with you in person. Today, we're planning an important meeting that was rescheduled from last week because of our bad weather. The meeting deals with what we call the capital solutions that you may have heard about in the last several weeks, our national program to make capital and vehicles available at very low prices with financing to community and public transit agencies around the nation. That important negotiation is the thing that keeps me from being with you on this important occasion today. Let me further add how grateful I am for all of the help and support you were able to muster to support us and to support each other in the recently completed transportation reauthorization. Although that legislation doesn't go as far as we like, it does go far to redressing some of the grievances we had at the last reauthorization, especially as it relates to the bus program. During my time in Washington, our association has always championed the idea that people at the local level should be in charge of making decisions about their future by giving them the resources they need with the least restrictions. And in the last reauthorization, fighting to give people the flexibility to decide if they needed operating assistance or they needed capital, but to put that decision with you, the people who know about what's needed the most. In addition to our work in public transit, as you know, we've been very hard at work for the last decade in trying to improve the construction and expansion of our nation's medical transportation programs that many of you have been involved with, and many of you and your organizations helped to found. Many of these changes occurred in the Affordable Care Act and are coming into place now. Across the nation, the need for transportation is growing, but it is growing in different ways and requires flexibility in the delivery of transportation services. The transportation system that serves medical people and patients in the future needs flexibility and also needs a variety of different coordinated mechanisms to deliver that service that span private and public, nonprofit, community-based, and volunteers, all of which community and public transit have always had a strong and growing relationship. It's certainly my hope looking forward that we'll continue to build on those relationships, and part of the work of the Capital Solutions is designed to make that a little bit easier. So I hope you'll be hearing more about that in the next several weeks and months. As you know, we're also committed to the concept here, as I was when I lived back in our region, to the idea that transportation as we know it should not be restricted to only certain kinds of places and communities and certain kinds of services. The one thing we've learned since the passage of the Affordable Care Act is that there is a need for community and public transportation everywhere. It may not look familiar to us as we know it in the past, but it will continue to evolve to meet demands that people have to get to those places that are so important. As our nation continues to move forward in a healthcare system that is based upon outpatient care and deinstitutionalization, community and public transportation will be more important in the future than they have in the past. 35 years ago, when I was first a Swta member, we used to worry about whether or not people would want to use public and community transportation. There were people back there in 1981 who believed that public transit would be a thing of the past and that there would be no need for public or community transportation because everybody would have a car. Today we hear people who kind of say the same thing, that everybody will have a self-driving car. Truth is, Community and public transportation are needed now more than ever because the demographics in our country and in your region have changed dramatically in favor of community and public transit. And as we continue this thrust on outpatient services, I can guarantee you that the demand will continue to grow year after year after year. The secret of our success, and the secret of success in your region in particular, has always been deeply rooted in innovation. Some of the most innovative forms of public transportation in the United States developed in the area represented by Swta. Whether you're in Texas or New Mexico or Oklahoma or New Orleans or Kansas or any of the other states, we've seen constructive ways to go about doing this business that people would not have dreamed possible 30 years ago. So I want to encourage you to continue to build on those innovations and continue to work with our association in trying to find new alternatives and paths forward. As you know, no one ever really leaves public transit. As my friend Alan Keeper used to say, they really just transfer. And as you know, I am planning to transfer on the 31st of March this year and move on to something else as well. My successor, Scott Bogren, has worked closely with many of you for many years, and particularly with you in the last reauthorization. Our association and our relationship are in good hands for the future. We look forward to continuing that work long into the next decade. As for me, let me close by once again thanking all of you for your support, especially in the support you've given us in these legislative and political fights here in Washington, where we worked together with you to produce the kinds and best changes we have. Last but not least, one of the things I've said to Swta meetings since 20 years I've been in Washington is, would you please do something about sending better people from our region to represent you in Washington when it comes to our issues? I want to close by saying that this year, in the work that we saw from many of your representatives, I'm glad to say it appears you have finally heard the message and delivered the kind of support we needed. Please, in the future, don't ever forget, those representatives that represent you here in Congress do work for you, and it's up to you to make sure they understand what they need to do for you, the people you serve, and the communities you represent. So again, my thanks to all of you, my best wishes, and I'll be seeing you somewhere on the other side of one of those transfers, I'm sure. Goodbye for now.